Well, I've asked a friend of mine to come on the show, and I'm pleased he made a little time for us here. My good friend, Ambassador John Bolton. How are you, John?
Hey, Mark. How you doing?
I'm okay. You know, I listened to Romney's statement yesterday. I've listened to him today. I think he has said some very, very good things where there's a vacuum. And what's all this nonsense attacking him?
Well, you know, I think he's taken a very sound position. I think it's one of the highlights of his campaign. And I think he stuck to it today in a press conference that can only be described as a major embarrassment for the mainstream media. You know, we've had an American ambassador and 3 of his colleagues killed in Libya. And the only thing the media could ask Romney about was, didn't you jump the gun on your statement? I mean, it is embarrassing. And Romney stuck to it. He defended making the remarks. He was very articulate. And he's absolutely right. If this is in the middle of a campaign, if this is not a moment to talk about the inadequacies of the Obama policies, when do we get the chance to do that?
I don't know. I've never seen a campaign like this where the opponent's not allowed to talk about anything. He's not allowed to talk about... Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. If you were Obama, you wouldn't want anybody talking about not only the economy, but the weakness of his national security policy that was one of the predicates, one of the foundations for people in Libya and Egypt believing they could undertake these assaults and get away with it.
What is the Obama foreign policy doctrine? Does anybody know?
I don't think he has a doctrine. I don't think he cares about national security. I think he's different from every American president since Franklin Roosevelt, who woke up every day thinking, what threats does America face in the world today? I think he doesn't see threats to America. I think he's content with American decline. I think he is utterly blind to the threat of radical Islam. And because of that, in part, we've lost 4 Americans in the past day.
You know, he gives this statement. He takes no questions, which is really bizarre to me. Romney took questions. He takes no questions. He goes to the State Department, apparently. Then he flies off to Las Vegas for a fundraiser. You worked for Reagan. I worked for Reagan. Reagan wouldn't have flown off to a fundraiser after an event like this. He would have called people around and said, okay, what do we do about this?
No, look, we've got threats to Americans now all across the Middle East, threats to our diplomats, but threats to private citizens, too, to business people who are in the region, to tourists, to people who are visiting their families. We need the commander-in-chief on the bridge, not off doing fundraisers, but it shows what Obama's priorities are. It's always been political. It's always been about getting reelected, and it's another signal to the radicals and our enemies in the region that he just doesn't take this seriously.
And on top of that, John Bolton, he's about to hollow out our military like no president in modern American history, is he not?
Look, the sequestration on the defense side added to the nearly $1 trillion in cuts over 10 years that he's already gotten through in his first 3.5 years are going to leave us with an utterly inadequate military. And I tell you, it may sound like budget wonk talk, but the enemies of the United States watch it very carefully because they want to know what our capabilities are. And under Obama, they've gone downhill, and the trajectory is even steeper if he gets a second term.
And he does this despite what's going on in the Middle East, despite Red China and it's threatening all of its neighbors and demanding more and more of the China Sea. They're demanding islands. They're making threats. Russia's building up its military right now. Am I right about this?
No, you're right about all of it, and yet the Obama administration said some months ago it's time to pivot away from the Middle East toward Asia, as if the Middle East is in such good shape we can divert our attention. You know, we've got Iran making steadily progress toward nuclear weapons capability. All the while, the administration is watching it happen and pressuring Israel not to act in its own self-defense. That's the Obama policy. They worry more about an Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear program than they do about an Iranian nuclear weapon.
I mean, these leaders, so-called, in Tehran, they keep telling Israel they're going to blow them off the face of the map. Even the UN has said, hey, they're very close to getting the nukes that they want. And I don't even know what American policy is. Do you?
It's still what Obama said in his inaugural address. He's got that open hand out to the Iranians. If only they would unclench their fist. They don't intend to unclench their fist. They intend to fill it with nuclear weapons. And he doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand what it takes to provide for American security. Or if he does, he appears just utterly indifferent to doing what he needs to do to different. Leading from behind is a kind way to describe the Obama foreign policy.
You know, Rudy Giuliani said today, it's not just Iran getting nuclear weapon capacity, it's giving it to terrorists who they support, and it's a direct threat to the United States national security, and it doesn't appear that this administration sees it that way.
Yeah, the Iranian nuclear program is not an Israeli problem. It's an American problem. It's a global problem. And although they're working hard on getting ballistic missiles to deliver them worldwide, Iran has been the central banker of terrorism for decades. They've armed terrorists like Hamas and Hezbollah. And I think Rudy's exactly right. I've worried about this for some time as well, that if they get nuclear weapons, they would give them to terrorists, bring them into the United States across the porous Mexican border, and we would be very much at risk. That's why I focused for 10 years on trying to convince people that we got to stop Iran before they cross that finish line.
And yet, Obama continues to treat Netanyahu like he's some Yahoo from some third world banana republic. They're on the front line of this thing. They're surrounded. They're our ally. Have you ever seen anything like this?
Absolutely not. And I tell you, the way he has treated Netanyahu, the way he has left Israel alone and isolated in the face of this Iranian nuclear weapons threat is very closely related to what's happened in Libya and Egypt today. He is ceding authority and hegemony in that part of the world to the religious extremists, to the people who don't have our interest at heart, who in fact hate our way of life, hate our allies, and have been determined for quite some time to kill us. If the Iranians get nuclear weapons, they will be able to carry out the threat that they've embodied in conferences they hold in Tehran called The World Without Israel and the United States. What else do you need to know?
Well, there's only one way to deal with that, and that's to defeat Obama, isn't it?
Look, this is an issue that I think has not received enough attention in American politics for years, until it comes and smacks us in the face that we've got a weak commander-in-chief, a weak leader, somebody who's content with American decline. I think Romney has a very Reagan-esque view of the American role in the world, and if we don't replace Obama, we're going to get what we deserve.
I'll tell you what, John, I think the last 24, 36 hours have been Romney's finest hour. I mean, he has stood up. He's under attack even from his own party. The Republican leaders in Congress have kept their mouths shut. They're cowed by the media. The media's ganged up on him. This guy has shown strength. He's shown a steel spine. And he's talking about Americanism and free speech and the Constitution and that we're going to stand up to this. And they want him to shut up, don't they? Because they don't want the spotlight shown on Obama.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've just said. I won't even try to add to it. I just underline it. You're exactly right.
All right, my brother. Well, God bless John Bolton, and you take care, okay?
Hang in there, Mark. Many thanks.
All right, you too. Ambassador.